the author name, but everyone called them books.
That's the closest.
These are the
Imagine.
people who used to remember page books, page numbers. Let it be noted.
No, that's the closest I came to it, and especially my last 2 years. And actually, they're not 2 years. It's like 1 year and few months. So when I hear people actually used to revise, like you're saying, I'm like, wow, there's so much inequality across the country.
True.
Apparently, even as we speak, there are people who are not doing CBC. You'll be surprised, by the way, when these guys get tested. There are people who are not doing, because every teacher is also learning CBC and teaching CBC.
Yeah.
Now, here in Nairobi, of course, I've seen chaos. Now imagine outside Nairobi, go to the remotest place.
Yeah.
Things that people are requested to bring here, like every other week you're printing something for your kid. Now imagine in
the place that doesn't even have electricity.
Yeah. Now you want the parents to
Do you understand?
Exactly.
So you can see CBC as much as, and I'm not critiquing it, I'm just saying even with KCSE or KCP, there's those disparities. Can we be able to harmonize education so that the standard is equal? Because me, I've always been a believer that innovation, smartness, IQ is equally distributed across the country or even across the continent.
For sure.
Now, move away from Kenya. Unless you have traveled a bit and you've seen. It's chaos. Total chaos that even if someone makes it from that place, those are the guys who change the world because they make something out of nothing.
Nothing, for sure.
Right? So even as you have these podcasts, I want us to think like if really Africa has to really change things, if you have to be the impact masters, as we say, how can we, because tomorrow it might be the Minister of Education. Africa, I see Africa being united. What can we do different to address, a matter of like advanced stuff, but things that actually could spread and scale without much of loans and all these things that people create around it and change the dynamics. Because having traveled across this country alone and meeting people who otherwise had no idea what they want to be. And now you see you can be sent in an unlikely university. You guys, maybe you are sent to the most likely universities. You can be sent to an unlikely
one.
We have 65 universities. I don't know if you know all of them. Maybe you guys know like 4 or 5.
I don't think I know all of
Do you
them.
Yes,
10?
imagine 65. If you are sent to one of those that you don't know, and you just know 5, there are another 60 that you don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Imagine the chances of you making it anything. It's crazy. So even when we do outreach, when we do some of these things, the thing that you want people to know is that we are presenting a platform where resources are equal. You can access for you and your friends, and if you come together, it's even much better. You can make it. But how was a KCSE?
I remember we moved to the dining hall. The dining hall was rendered null and void, persona non grata. If you're not a Form 4, kindly eat outside. Why are you wasting our time? Especially the third term. It was crazy. It was very, very. I remember I also had my own section at the corner somewhere. So KCSE wasn't bad. I don't think I picked a reference. I was actually thinking about whether ours was from KMF or KCSE Made Familia. I don't think it was for us because I was a year after. I did my exam a year after you. I don't think it was, but it really wasn't that bad. It was, at least for me, please, at least for me, because I think the more access you have, and I was actually just thinking about how important access is to getting leverage, So, for instance, the fact that we had seen a couple of these questions all across the board. So some of these questions that had come during our mocks or our exams previously, or we had seen them we had this, we had a lab manual that was printed, like it was school owned. We used to do like labs, our lab practicals every week. So every day actually in Form 4. So you're imagining that even going into the lab sessions, it wasn't very difficult for us because these were questions we had already come and seen, So it wasn't really anything new. Until recently, actually a week ago, I was talking to some lady, she's in Form 3, and she's telling me how they don't do lab practicals. I know. They don't do lab practicals.
There are schools which do not have labs.
Exactly.
Or they have lab, but they do not have
They
the
hardly ever
equipment.
use them. And She's telling me how, especially like, because she's in Form 3 right now, so the current Form 4s, how they've only gone to the lab, they've only had 3 lab sessions the entire year. And I was imagining how by the end of second term, going into third term, how we were so fed up with lab practicals because it was a daily thing. It was during afternoon break, you'd go to the lab. 4:30, go to the lab. Daily, Monday to Friday. Ole wako if you did 3 sciences, you'd have lab practicals every day, Monday to Friday. So you're imagining how, I was actually even thinking about how access really puts us at a different place all across, especially within the education system, because there are people who didn't have access or like they didn't have the privilege that we had, the information that we had. You're looking at things like KMF. How many students actually have KMF till this day?
It's still
it's something that everyone, especially if you've gone to a school that basically binds by it or prays by it or promise, like how to phrase it, like speaks to it, how KMF is very important. But there's so many other people and there's so many other students who don't even know KMF exists, leave alone having it.
And is it by design that they print less of that, or because this is the first time I'm hearing about it?
Oh, they're just normal books. It's just you buy it in the textbook store or anywhere. It's just like any other revision book. Maybe it's a bit expensive or something, so you can't have all of them, and you have many subjects. So maybe you have one, someone else has another subject.
So you do exchange program.
That's how we work. You just schedule it, say, hey, can I borrow this tomorrow? So that's how it works. Even the library had very few. There were like 2 or 3.
Okay.
So the moment people realized the exam was, everyone ran to get them. Very few. So you have to learn how to read in a group, things like those. And not everyone, again, actually has access to them in the first place.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. You get to dining.
Get to the dining.
Person and granta place.
Persona non grata. From 1 to Form 3, we shall not see you in this dining hall. I remember we actually wreaked havoc in high school because we shifted the timing, the sleeping times. Supposed to sleep by 11, now we're sleeping at 2 a.m. People were not sleeping. We really were not sleeping. But I appreciate myself and I appreciate my group members and my friends and like the entirety of the students of Loreto High School Limuru 2017 because we pulled through for each other. We really held each other's hands. We worked together. And by and large, we did really well. So yeah, and it was not the greatest experience. I don't think such pressure should. We would not advocate for such pressure, but it was a good experience.
Yeah, you have said pressure, and I remembered earlier today I was saying, and I was remembering that people ask, "Can you work?" And I work well under pressure. It's a statement that people present in their resumes or CVs with pride. And I realized, by the way, it's systematic, like it's by design, because if for sure, and this is an African culture that we need to drop. This one last minute kind of approach, whereby you wait all along, okay, until maybe a day or few hours to you put in everything. And I think we develop this from the exams that we do every day, whereby we don't try to understand stuff, we try to cram. And again, just using the example of the high school I went to, the second one, I realized there are people who don't struggle to understand things. And I learned a lot from them. Like if you take time to understand when something is presented and really you get it in your brain, it's really hard for it to go. Because these guys never struggle to like, it's the last day. Or there are people who have leak. Or someone will beat me. It's just, this is what I understand, this is what I will present, and life moves on. And these guys used to present really, really good example. One of the guys, the one I was telling you about earlier, the guy who nothing he looked at. He took 3 sciences. Actually, if there were like 4 more,
you'd have done them.
And he's a guy who will find in every trouble that you think of. He's a guy who was easy. He used anything and everything that goes around. But it was easy. I'm living my life.
It's actually important. It's actually interesting that you say that. I have a friend of mine, we're in high school together and we were still in uni together. And she literally only needs to sit down and listen.
That's all.
She won't forget.
Yeah.
She only needs to listen. She won't take notes for who? Just hear. I need to have a blue, black, red, yellow, green pen. I need to underline italize. I cannot understand with just listening. I will probably sleep. And and what you're saying is very important because there's so many. And I think CBC hopefully does this, leverages that playing ground because we learn very differently.
True.
We really learn very differently. And you're imagining someone only needs to sit down and listen, and you need to put in 65 hours, and you're still not understanding half of the things that they understand. So there is also that need to leverage and create spaces where different learning styles or architectures can shine exactly, be incorporated together.
Yeah. So apparently that's very, very important. So you performed really well. What did you get?
I got an A-.
That's good.
Sylvia, what did you get? Thank you. What did you get?
An A-.
Oh gosh. And you, what did you get?
Me.
I got a 141.
141?
We're in that crew of the 141 era. So.
Oh yeah.
You were supposed to get an A.
In my heart.
Oh, it's still an A.
It is an A. You are. You're the 142nd.
However, on the ground.
So one day I'll tell my story. It's one of the interesting stories.
For sure.
When I tell it, by the way, you'll see why it's very interesting.
Okay, we can't wait.
It's one of the unlikely. I would say one of the unlikely outcomes. Yes. But anyway,
you should be the one seated here now.
No, one of these fine days I'll sit there. My story is quite fascinating, and I feel I'm not yet ready to tell it because one, it might impact in a negative and positive way, both sides. But I hope when I'm ready to impact in a positive way,
you'll be ready to listen.
And I feel like if I tell my story right now, other people's story will not sound interesting to listen to.
Wow.
No, for me, not for them.
Okay.
Because I like when you tell your story, I can also bring a few.
You can add a little.
And you see, that's how interesting it becomes because now I can see myself in one or the other.
Yeah.
But of course, one of these fine days, or in the coming years, I'll be able to see it and tell.
Can't wait.
I also have not seen someone who can ask the right questions yet.
Have you tried?
For me.
Have you tried? Try first.
I have.
Right.
Even some of my guests, sometimes we have a chat and I'm like, okay. There's only one guy, but of course,
Graham.
Yeah, he's always. Yes, I don't know if he's around.
He's somewhere here.
Yeah, he's the guy I feel like, this guy can ask the right questions, but not yet there. But of course, even him, it's really hard to get him as a guest. I think we'll get he has.
You should actually have. Exactly.
But for him, he has stories for days in different subjects. Oh my goodness.
That's amazing.
Sometimes even when you're having a discussion, I feel like getting a mic and cameras. Because I'm like, if people really had this across Africa, it would change a lot of things.
For
even
sure.
the way people view God, even the way people view the Bible, even the way people view Islam, even the way people view technology, innovation. In a subject, and that's how I like some of the discussions because I believe Africans were endowed with knowledge beyond our imagination.
For sure.
From even the guests I've hosted here, oh my, like we are not telling enough.
Yeah,
there's so much. But ideally, you knew that you'll go to JKUAT, or was it one of the selection, or how did that happen?
I think it was my selection. It was actually I wanted to do either electrical or telecoms.
Why electrical or telecoms specifically?
I think it was feeding into the small things of water. You remember when I started talking about me being 8 years? So I fast forwarded that to now moving towards fixing the DVD player at home a couple of years later and being the one who was tinkering with stuff and mending things in the house even when I was in high school. So there was that interest. So after high school, I sit down with myself and I'm like, and it's interesting how around the same time I was finishing up with high school is the time when they had the Orengo, the whole election petition. Exactly. So it was very insightful for me because I was like, I do not want to do this. And that is okay. That is fine. So I had to now go back to the drawing board. So by the time I'm finishing high school, I have no idea what I want to do, but I just know I don't want to do law. So, and I think I was actually thinking about it in the morning. It was a first place. This was a first incept of community because my mom introduced me to 4 engineers. She introduced me to 4 different engineers. She was like, meet that one, go talk to them. Meet that one, go talk to them. Meet that one, go talk to them.
What kind of engineers?
There was a civil engineer, there was an electrical engineer, there was a mechanical engineer. I think the other one had done water engineering at something to do with Kenya Water something. Then also...
Were they your girls or there was some...
It was mixed. Okay. It was 2 ladies, 3 ladies and a gentleman. And I remember also now starting to talk to my friends who are in campus and asking them, how did you do this? How are you doing this? How are you able to do this? What made you choose this, take this choice? So I was actually thinking about how that's starting to talk about the kind of problem I was going through or the kind of problem I had at the time was the first incept for me in community. So I think I kind of tinkered around, spoke to a couple of people, decided. So come the time to do the placement, I decided, okay, let's just choose JKUAT. So JKUAT, this and this school.
So you guys used to do placement after the exam?
We did twice.
You
So
did
the
during,
first time,
before even the exam?
Yeah, the first time.
And then after the
revision.
results?
So the first time I'd written law.
Okay.
So I'd done
You-
UN
which-
law,
oh,
JKUAT
UN?
law.
Okay.
It was actually UN law and KU law. Was it NKU? It was UN law, KU law, JKUAT, all the laws, all traditional schools that actually offer law. And then now afterwards, now come the revision time, I'm just like, I can't do this. It doesn't fit me anymore.
Yeah.
So, and now having spoken to now this couple of engineers and having gotten an insight into kind of the things that they were doing, I really liked the engineering space, especially the electrical engineering space. But again, from a point of ignorance, I said, Mr. Kikokwa fundi wa stima? No.
Because the electrical just translates to that? Okay.
Again, that's all I knew at the time. It's not all there is, but that's all I knew.
And remembering the blackout that we had the other day, I'm like, I have something for these electrical engineers. Like, you guys do your stuff real well. I don't want to use the curse words, but do you really do it well? Or?
I actually read something very interesting on Twitter on how it's a correlation with the dropping of thermal power at Turkana or something. Okay, let me not. I probably will give rumors.
Explain that to anyone else. Not typical engineers, but it's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll fix these things by the
For sure.
Mark my words. Yeah, some of these things I feel like, not that I'm in position of power or anything, but I believe
Who knows?
there are some of things that we should not be experiencing.
Yeah.
To some extent, the kind of engineers that we have, the smartness that we have across Africa, there are some things
It's
that...
not a problem we should have encountered
Like
the whole
how?
country.
Not be happening.
But
right
also,
now.
I don't ignore that some of these things are by design. To some extent, I don't really know. When you have a blackout of 12 hours, 18 hours to some extent,
Yeah.
because think of it this way: how much losses do you bring people? Even individuals who have maybe stuff in the fridge, or people who wanted to work remote job.
Yeah.
There's some. If you think about it, the loss that we incur is more than whatever the design that blackout, among as many other failures. And I'm happy what not even in the power industry, but what the new government is doing is things like e-citizen. I've been like saying this for longest, maybe for the last 10 years, that when I look at other developed world government website versus ours, like all these engineers I interact with every day and see some cool designs.
How come?
Where do you expect them to implement some of this cool stuff? So most of these guys end up going to Europe, going to US, going to, some of the engineers work in the State House, by the way, from here, from this country. Some of them work for Tesla. People I know, actually, not like people ESA. But why do we let all this talent go? Because of our selfish interest, whereby, my cousin knows how to write HTML and CSS. Put them there. And then you don't want to hear anything and no one can fire them. We need to move beyond that. We're not saying your cousin should not get a job. But of course, accept your cousin is supposed to be an intern first to learn some of these things.
To grow.
There's also merit that comes with it.
So let's be merit-based because, of course, if you ask me, we have the right, actually more than the right talent.
We do.
Two, there are people who really give up because some of these opportunities are given out. And also, let's encourage people to like even do entrepreneurship whereby you can actually consult for all these people. But the government, as much as I'm not seeing so much from the current government, at least they're on the right track when it comes to like, you know, the systems. As, of course, e-citizen looks good,
really
but when you go to the specific services, they're not yet there. But if you can be able to do all of these together, and actually this could be emulated from Rwanda. If you go to Rwanda here, you can register business in 6 hours. 6 hours.
Yeah.
So you could land there, register business, and come back home.
Yeah.
6 hours is good.
And you're done.
And they want to implement the Mauritius way of doing business. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So can you imagine that? So it can be done. We're not talking about things that cannot be done. The other day we were at ALU and Carnegie Mellon in Rwanda. And you find all Africans represented there. These guys built systems that I could not imagine. Within, I think, 8 hours, 6 hours.
Less than 8 hours.
Or the hackathon you had in Rwanda.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can't tell me otherwise. Like I'm already sold out. I'm already convinced this is
We
working.
actually
and
have
we can-
potential for sure.
So it's a matter of also because you see, innovation cannot exist in vacuum. So policies have to support these things to do with how we perceive the solution we want to see, the expectation from the citizens.
Yeah.
Because I'm proud to pay right now. Actually, I would say confidently, I'm proud to pay for something e-citizen because of the usability and all that. Do you know right now you can see your ID on e-citizen? You can see your passport. You can see your driving license. This is the way it is. So even if you forgot it at home, people have spent. There are people maybe in jail because they forgot their passport or whatever it is or driving license and they could not show it to a cop.
Yeah.
This is serious. Someone maybe is in jail as we speak right now because they forgot and the cop could not log into his and see.
Yeah.
Imagine how many lives will be improved just by that one experience. So, you know, William Ruto, His Excellency, good job. If it's you who is doing this, good job. Keep doing it. Present merited kind of stuff or work that people could actually plug in. And we support you from the tech ecosystem. But of course, again, we need to address the electrical. What was steamer?
What was steamer?
Categorically. We can do better. That's what I can say right
For sure.
So you didn't want to become a mtu steamer?
I do want to become a steamer. You see the kind of problems I helped.
I could be looking.
That would have been your reputation.
Imagine I could have been the one in the hot seat having to explain why.
Yeah.
I'll be looking in some kind of way. Tukimaliza shule. May God be with you.
May God be with us all. So I think it was from a point of ignorance that I picked telecoms. If I'm being honest, it was a point of ignorance.
So if you were given that choice again, you'd pick electrical?
No, I probably would. See the way there's a poem we did in high school with Robert Frost. There's a verse that says, "You see how way turns on to way." So having made that choice out of ignorance has led me to a point where now I can't turn back. Now I really like it.
Okay. But you know there's nothing happens by accident.
Sorry?
Nothing happens by accident.
True, for sure. That's
But
100%.
from the human nature, we think, okay.
Just by accident.
Also, in this
Accidental.
podcast, we get spiritual, so don't worry. So, from the human perspective, you look at it and like, this was by accident. But when you sit back and take time, you're like, this was meant to happen.
It
actually.
was.
If this didn't happen, this could not have happened. If this didn't happen, you see things actually start now making
it
sense.
starts stacking up.
Yeah, so you're on the right track. That's what I'm
Yes,
saying. Yeah.
by and large.
Yeah.
So so I picked telecoms, got called, joined, started my program.
That was your first choice?
It was. It was. My first choice was telecoms, and then electrical. It was actually telecoms, and then electrical.
Those are different universities.
Yeah, telecoms at JKUAT, telecoms at multimedia, because multimedia I think was the only one that was offering telecoms at the time. And then electrical at JKUAT, electrical at UN. Yeah.
So UN doesn't offer telecoms? They stopped?
Not that I know.
No, they have.
Okay, when I was joining, there was
Science,
Oh, okay.
There's a difference.
not
I thought
engineering.
maybe when I was joining, there was telecommunication engineering or something. But you see, when I was joining, by the way, one of my guardian was, he used to be I don't know if it's, they're called what? the piloting, not pilots. The engineers who deal with the aeroplanes.
Aeronautical.
Aerospace.
Not exactly. The guys who travel with the guys who travel with the like jets and stuff or airplanes. Always there is an engineer.
The first engineer,
Something like that, but in the military. So yeah. When I tell my story, I'll talk about him a bit.
We should.
So he's a guy who actually showed me the reality of engineering post what I anticipated. Me from day one, I wanted to be an engineer. But over time, I wanted to be two things, an engineer or a musician. But I realized over time, singing is not my thing for some reason. But I believe if I could...
Wow.
If I could practice enough and given an environment, I could be a musician. So I don't rule it out. But of course, the environment did not conspire with me or the nature did not conspire with me. So I started also tinkering around with law and journalism, which actually did not turn out because I was lucky enough to visit all these universities before I joined them.
That's amazing.
And every time I went to any university, I had their own story, which I'll tell one day. And when I went to the university I wanted to do engineering, it happened to be it. But now I was like, why don't you do telecommunication engineering? It's quite on demand, and given the facts and all whatnot, you will make it. I'm like, when the mobile phone came about, this wiring of, you remember we had a wired kind of telecommunication from Posta and Telecom now, the one that we call Telecom. They took those wires down within a year. Or they were taken down, or I don't know what happened, or they were harvested. For some reason, 1 year there was no, even right now you might be surprised, there is they're called line? Call them what?
Phone line.
They're called phone lines.
I guess.
The cables,
the keyboard telephones.
Yes.
But if you go to other developed world, those things they still
exist.
But here we took them within a year. That actually opened my eyes on how fast the technology can change. So number one, I was discouraged with anything to do with anything you say telecom. I was like, if it's not software. And again, another thing is that I was thinking from the point of like, what is the cost that I could do that is one, mobile, two, entry point is not that steep, and I can start it. I don't need anyone else. I can build it. I can start it if I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I settled on software engineering. But after visiting KU, I changed my mind. Hey, KU, this is not an engineering school.
What happened?
Here is there is no engineering going on here. But don't worry. When I tell this story, you'll hear my view. That's my personal view. Then law and journalism. So I was left with law, journalism, and anything to do with computer science, right? So I went to UON. I visited, of course, the main campus where journalism and journalism is offered. Law is in Parklands. So I went to main campus, like journalism. I visited actually some of those lectures. I was so disappointed. The engineers who deal with the aeroplanes.
Aeronautical.
Aerospace.
Not exactly. The guys who travel with the guys who travel with the like jets and stuff or airplanes. Always there is an engineer.
The first engineer,
Something like that, but in the military. So yeah. When I tell my story, I'll talk about him a bit.
We should.
So he's a guy who actually showed me the reality of engineering post what I anticipated. Me from day one, I wanted to be an engineer. But over time, I wanted to be two things, an engineer or a musician. But I realized over time, singing is not my thing for some reason. But I believe if I could...
Wow.
If I could practice enough and given an environment, I could be a musician. So I don't rule it out. But of course, the environment did not conspire with me or the nature did not conspire with me. So I started also tinkering around with law and journalism, which actually did not turn out because I was lucky enough to visit all these universities before I joined them.
That's amazing.
And every time I went to any university, I had their own story, which I'll tell one day. And when I went to the university I wanted to do engineering, it happened to be it. But now I was like, why don't you do telecommunication engineering? It's quite on demand, and given the facts and all whatnot, you will make it. I'm like, when the mobile phone came about, this wiring of you remember we had a wired kind of telecommunication from Posta and Telecom now, the one that we call Telecom. They took those wires down within a year. Or they were taken down, or I don't know what happened, or they were harvested. For some reason, 1 year there was no, even right now you might be surprised, there is no, they're called line, call them what?
Phone lines.
They're called phone lines.
I guess.
The cables, those
The keyboard telephones.
Yes.
But if you go to other developed world, those things they still exist. But here we took them within a year. That actually opened my eyes on how fast the technology can change. So number one, I was discouraged with anything to do with anything you say telecom. I was like, if it's not software. And again, another thing is that I was thinking from the point of like, what is the cost that I could do that is one, mobile, two, entry point is not that steep, and I can start it. I don't need anyone else. I can build it. I can start it if I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I settled on software engineering. But after visiting KU, I changed my mind. Hey, KU, this is not an engineering school.
What happened?
Here is there is no engineering going on here. But don't worry. When I tell this story, you'll hear my view. That's my personal view. Then law and journalism. So I was left with law, journalism, and anything to do with computer science, right? So I went to UON. I visited, of course, the main campus where journalism and journalism is offered. Law is in Parklands. So I went to main campus, like journalism. I visited actually some of those lectures. I was so disappointed.